Happy New Year! Wait a minute, Frosty.
No,
It's
no, no.
actually Merry Christmas.
We recorded the New Year's show last year.
That's right.
We're just going to recycle that one, right?
Nothing much happened in 2017
Yeah.
really to talk about.
I think
Pretty dismal.
members would pay extra to see what Bill's hair looked like last year this time.
Darker, as I,
I think
recall.
that there's some
All of ours.
My unmarried hair was considerably darker.
Your unmarried hair has nothing to say to your married hair.
I've heard that. Thank you.
It should slink away in shame. I mean, that's
It
not to
does.
say that it was always bad, but I think that
It was a coat of many colors.
When,
Yes.
when I got married, I gave away my little black book of hairstyles.
well, marriage wears well on Bill Whittle. I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this is this members only, Bill?
No.
No, this is going out to the
good.
general public, throughout the masses, throughout the
Absolutely.
world, the proletariat. And we produce a show, 5 episodes of which every week, called Right Angle. And this is a special Christmas edition of Right Angle. And so, we've done this periodically with holidays, and we blandly ask each other for Christmas memories and thoughts and things like that. And so, being that you're probably tired of that approach to things, I'm just going to blandly ask Stephen. Stephen, what are your Christmas memories at this time of year? Are you able to pull out of the sucking vortex of politics and news and enjoy yourself for a moment?
So well. And you know what? To heck with Christmas past. I was a lucky kid in some ways, unlucky in others. I think it was a pretty normal childhood in a lot of ways. And I had these great Christmases, and I don't care. I'm a dad now. I've got one that's almost 12, one that's 7.5, and it's the focus is it's on them. It's on Christmas present and Christmas future. It really is. And my 7-year-old, I hate to gush. Who am I kidding? I love
Gush
to gush.
away.
My 7-year-old has taken to finding things around the house and wrapping them and giving them to us over the last week. It's just such a joy. And I hope the kids can't listen through the door right now. Their Christmas break started today. I think they're downstairs. But my 11-year-old's 12th birthday is just 3 days after Christmas. And so Melissa and I, we go through just 48 hours of hell tearing down all the Christmas and putting up all the birthday, because you don't want your kid's birthday to feel like Christmas leftovers, right? But I'm getting a start on it today, on Friday, after we're done taping. He's really taken to target shooting, and so we're going to go down to the local range. And
So you're going to go over to Target.
Yeah,
Oh, wait a minute. No, that's...
Since he wants this to be his varsity sport, he wants to get into the Air Force Academy.
wow.
We're going to go down. We're going to pick up. He's got a little .22 rifle, but it's not really target quality. So we're going to pick out a new .22, and we're going to spend a little time at the range, and then have a pizza for lunch.
That's awesome. That's an American Christmas birthday
It
slash
really is.
everything. It's practically like a Ramahana Kwanzmas, as the Glenn.
We're squishing it all together. It's going to be great. And
Hat tip to Glenn Beck for that song.
And if either one of you mentioned politics, it's going to put a real stain on my day. So let's just keep with the Christmas theme.
Well, the dry cleaner's right down the street from Stephen Green. Bill Whittle, would you like to ruin Steve's Christmas, or is it possible that now a more what is the word, domestic Bill Whittle has a
Domesticated?
Yes, domesticated. So
I no longer get to pee wherever I want to in my house. And
That's right.
It's quite depressing, I have to say.
How does virtual livestock Bill Whittle look at this season?
Well, first of all, let me just advise my good friend Stephen Green that he may want to look into at some point in the future a Buckmark .22 caliber target pistol, which my wife Natasha, who came from Russia, had never ever shot a gun of any kind before. She did a couple rounds with a 9mm. Was quite intimidated by it, but something in it really stuck. So several months ago, I got her a .22 caliber Beretta pistol. And she is such a naturally great shot that she was better than that pistol in a month. So
Wow.
we ended up getting her the Buckmark target pistol, and my humiliation continues.
She's put an entire magazine full of 22 rounds through the same first hole in the black, isn't she?
No fooling, guys. My wife probably shoots 600 rounds a week. And she's just shockingly good. And we're trying to figure out why. I think a fair amount of it, no fooling, is the fact that she's a photographer and she shoots at a very, very narrow depth of field. So it's a relatively long exposure, and she has to hold that
lens,
absolutely steady. In any event, that's just a fine little pistol and
You
great
know that,
photography practice.
Bill, that line, my wife shoots 600 rounds a week, I think is the beginning of one of the Hallmark Christmas movies that I've seen over the last several days.
That's exactly right.
Beautiful, romantic. Oh,
I'll tell you a quick little Christmas memory, and then I had a tremendous Christmas present just yesterday, as a matter of fact. We taped this on Friday. I just got back from 3 days in Florida with TPUSA Summit and have some real exciting stuff going forward for next year. But that's politics. We're not going to talk about politics. We'll talk about that next week. I was checking the water under a tree, and we have a rental house now. We've got a hardwood floor, so I've never really had to worry about much leakage,
yeah.
And I was down under the tree, and we just put the water in, and I was down there for a minute or two waiting to see if anything was dripping. And I recall how much time I had spent actually under a tree, under the Christmas tree when I was a boy. I'd forgotten how much of my life during Christmas was spent under the tree. I loved it down there. I loved it. I know it's a strange, odd thing to say, and it's certainly not going to contribute to my reputation for mental stability, but I just absolutely
You have
adored
no
it
such
down there.
reputation. Go ahead.
No, you got nothing to defend. But there's something about being underneath the Christmas tree and the smell and the lights and the whole thing just really brought back all of the Christmases from our childhood. And I was thinking about the last time my family was all together. And, things have happened to all of us, four kids, and my dad died in 2002, and my mom's been basically, here and not here for 4 or 5 years now. Alzheimer's is a terrible thing, and I had avoided going down there to visit her for 2 or 3 years, simply because last time I was there it was simply just so mortifying and just so terrible, because the dementia results in a great deal of this constant kind of fear and sadness. And so we were in Florida, and I wanted my wife to meet my mom and my mom to meet my wife, and I knew that she was not going to really remember me or recognize me or anything, as that's how far it got. But we went down there, and we went in the room and walked in the room, and the first thing she said was, "Bill," and she came over and hugged me, and then I said, "This is my wife, Natasha," and I got married at 58. And my mom, who cannot complete sentences, truly, she can't finish sentences. "I should have known you would have married somebody so beautiful."
Oh, man.
And then we sat and we walked around the facility. I guess you'd call it a nursing home. Fair enough. It's a medical facility. And on the way over there, my sister Melanie, who's been the soldier, right? She's been the one who's been, my brother Steve and my sister Melanie, taking such good care of my mom over so many really hard years, because dementia and Alzheimer's is heartbreaking. It's just soul destroying. And we were walking around the floor of this facility, and my mom would start a sentence and not finish it. But on the way over there, my mom had said, she had overheard a conversation where somebody was saying, if there was a fire in the building, I think the staff was talking about who they liked and who they didn't like. And somebody said, if there was a fire in the building or something, who would we get out first? And before they could finish get out first, everybody said, Edith. And I thought that's a good sign, because when I was there last, she had been so sad and so scared. But my mom cannot complete sentences. She'll start a sentence and she doesn't remember how to finish it. But the essence of her is still there, and she was joking and laughing, and her sense of humor was still there, and that's really the word. The essence of her was there, and playful and fun, and she may make some comment that actually makes no sense whatsoever, but if you responded to it, if it were true, you'd get a huge laugh and stuff. So we walked around the floor several times, and my mom said, like 4 times, she said, "This is a beautiful day. Today's a great day." And my sister said she's never said that ever before. In some ways, it's cold comfort, and in other ways, not so cold. What I found for those people who are going through this disease, this is no, present performance is no guarantee of future results, right? But what I found, to my enormous, overwhelming relief and joy, 200-pound lighter relief and joy, was that as her memory continues to deteriorate, her fears disappear, because there's a period there in this disease and the kind of the dementia, Alzheimer's things where people are returned to a very early state and they don't have the character capacity to understand what's real and what's not anymore. But at least in the case of my mom, comes a point where she's no longer able to generate those fears. And she was the happy person I remember and the playful person I remember. And it was an incredible relief to me. I almost didn't go. It was so hard for me to see.
Oh,
but my wife
did.
convinced me to go, and my mom got to meet my wife, and my wife got to meet my mom. And it was just the best Christmas ever, and of enormous relief to me, because I don't mean to be bringing people down. Hopefully this doesn't bring them down. Hopefully the opposite. But it's in the nature of this disease to not want to recontact somebody, because in an awful way they are kind of the living dead. They're here, but they're not here, and every day they get more not here. And I just didn't want to go. I didn't want to go and experience that, but I did, and mostly because my wife and sister convinced me to. And it was the most amazing blessing, and I did not want to leave. And if I hadn't had to get on a plane, I would have stayed. I want to go back tomorrow. So I'm hoping I will get a chance to do that.
Hey, Bill, just a couple of quick things. The last conversation I had with my great-grandmother's many years ago now, and we were very close. She called me by every male name in the family except for my own, which was kind of heartbreaking. On the other hand, it was still a real conversation. I'll treasure that. The other thing you reminded me of, just a little tiny thing. I love all the LED Christmas tree lights. You can change the colors. You can program them to chase each other, flash or whatever. All those cool looking programs. But you remember the big bulbs and the heat
It's funny you
they
mentioned
threw
that.
off, and how
It's
that
funny you
warmed
mentioned that.
the room.
Yes, and
that was the
I wanted to
best.
talk about that while I was under the tree, and I forgot. Just super quick, those big bulbs, that would go into the Christmas tree. I'm right exactly with you. A couple years ago, I realized, oh boy, these new LED Christmas lights, the multicolored lights, are so
fun. They're great.
pure. They're so pure. The blues and the greens, they're so pure, but they don't light up the inside of the tree. So I use a lot of the little, colored bulbs, and then I throw LEDs in there to really punch the colors and stuff. But what reminded me about this, because we were talking about, oh my God, we're going to do the Christmas memories thing. What can I don't want to talk about Johnny
gonna be here
Astro
all
again,
day.
or Major Matt Mason. I do remember the reason I brought up being under the tree. I was under the tree, and in those old lights, they were wired in series, and if one light bulb went out,
That's right.
the whole
Whole
string went
thing,
out.
yeah.
You had to find out which one it was. And I must have been 8 or something. We had this thing plugged in, and I'm looking around trying to find out which one of these bulbs in the string was out, and I'm unscrewing them and screwing them back in again. And I'm in the process of doing this, and the next thing I know, I'm across the room, like against the wall, on the ground.
No.
Yeah, and it's like, what? And I had apparently stuck my little 7, 8-year-old finger into one of those sockets, which were putting pretty serious juice out, not like these LED things.
That's right.
And it just literally, boom, just knocked me back across the room. So Merry
explains a
Christmas to you,
lot.
Bill. Yeah, and this is how I learned a lesson about electrical sockets, which was the gift of that, the great gift of the Yule season of 1967 or something. Electricity is not something that's particularly fun to stick a wet finger into, or whatever the case.
The train set was good for that too.
And that
Periodically
ozone
shock
smell
yourself with
from the train set.
Bill, when you were talking about that with your mom, it made me think, and this is kind of focused but also tangential. It's when you have somebody, as my nan went through the similar kind of journey, and there's a tendency to want to find a hint, a memento of the past, and to see if you can find that moment of lucidity. And if it happens, you're very excited, and it's kind of like with a baby's smile. You never quite know whether it was because of you or because of some completely unrelated thing, but we live so much of our lives, and this happens in the holidays especially because relatives are getting together, trying to rekindle a past fond memory of something, trying to recapture a relationship the way it used to be, or rather the way we now remember that it used to be, and we forget all the rough edges that existed at the time, and then we wind up frustrated that we can't foster that same relationship that you had with your mom when you were 8 years old, or with your brothers, or whatever. So it's kind of like a reminder to me to say, love them as they are now, and take what blessing you can from them now. Don't treat them like they're a wax figure from a museum of the past, but treat them as if they're, whether this is somebody who is going through disease or Alzheimer's, or somebody who's just, in your family or in your extended friends. Just take it as it comes, love them as they are, and create the memories that you'll later cling to, and wish they were still here.
That's such a profound piece of advice, as usual, from you, Scotty. You go right to the heart of things every time. And they talk about a second childhood and so on. And I realized very early that that's exactly it. She recognized me at first, but then I was John for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And it would have hurt my feelings more, but my sister was John too, and so was my wife. We're all Johns. But just to address what you were talking about, it became clear to me immediately that none of the things that she was saying made any sense to me, but it made sense to her as they were coming. And you rapidly adopt the kind of mindset that you adopt when you're speaking to a 2 or 3 year old who's mumbling something about elephants stampeding into the room or something, and you simply go with it. You just go with it, and they're happy and you're happy, and it's just grand. Yeah, so thank you for that. That's sage advice.
Yesterday I had this phrase going through my mind, and I've never seen the TV show upon that this phrase is going to be a twisted version of. But when I was thinking about Christmas, believe it or not, as I was in the shower getting ready for work, and I was thinking about Christmas, and the phrase "naked and unafraid" came to me. And my understanding is there's a TV show called Naked and Afraid. But the idea that I've talked about before on this show, that God's plan to save the world was to send an infant, was akin to, as I've previously said, one of the Billy Jack movies, where when, Billy Jack was about to rough up 4 or 5 bikers, he'd take off his boots. And this was, sort of God's approach to saving the world was, let me show you how all-powerful God is. I am coming as a baby. This is how confident I am of my plan to save the world. I'm going to come as something utterly defenseless that needs to have care every moment of every day. And there's also a Precious Moments porcelain doll kind of approach to Christmas that I think misses some of the adventure of it. And I think that
that's a great word, adventure. What do you elaborate on that for me?
When you think about it, the real story isn't Silent Night, Holy Night, all is calm, all is bright. The real story is this baby who can't, his parents can't find a place to stay, appears in rather humble circumstances, and then almost immediately, within the next year or two, when the king finds out what's going on, this tyrant who was ruling over this land, or these people were oppressed, the tyrant goes after the baby and winds up slaughtering a bunch of other babies. The baby escapes, almost
to Egypt in the night.
Yes,
it's like a Bourne thriller or something.
No lighted highways. You've got a mule and you've got some stuff on the back of the mule, and you're carrying your wife and your kid and trying to get the heck out of there before your baby gets slaughtered. And so, there's exile, there's war, there's tyranny, there's slaughter, and all of this stuff in the Christmas story, I think, gets missed if we just picture these, magi walking around with boxes full of things that a baby doesn't need. So it's like,
my kids love frankincense. What are you talking about?
I was listening to a song the other day, and they said, the Jesus is in a manger essentially, and he's cold in the manger, and then the wise men bring frankincense and gold and myrrh, and I'm like, hey, couldn't you have taken some of that gold, gone to the local Walmart, and got a blanket or something? So some of this is biblical, some of it is myth making around the biblical narrative, but I think we miss the drama and the adventure of Christmas if we just think of it as that little baby that you see lying in a cradle or something like that. This is a plan to save the world by invading it on the part of God in the body of a baby who is then constantly at risk, ultimately slaughtered, rises from the grave, and accomplishes God's purpose. And I think if you miss that, you miss some of the power of Christmas. And I have thoroughly enjoyed this episode and hearing Bill and Steve's stories. And I hope that y'all who are watching here have your own stories that you're sharing with each other. And Bill, go ahead.
I do have one thing to add to what you just said, because this is a political show, and I'm not going to submit anybody to politics today by any means. But I will bring in a final note of philosophy. I had a chance to listen to Dennis Prager speak a few nights ago. And I think for me, the point of a modern Christmas in 2017 is this. It is not essential, needless to say, to you or your family's happiness to believe in the truth of the story as actual truth. You don't have to be a Christian to be an American, needless to say, or any of this. I don't mean to suggest that for a second. Christmas has become a very, in many ways, a non-secular holiday, and it's become very American because of that. But let me just say this one thing. Whether you believe in it or not, this country is founded upon twin ideas, and they're both in the Christmas story. And without these two concepts, there is no America. There's nothing like America. And the two concepts are accountability and redemption. You cannot let people live free without government overseeing everything they do unless they are fundamentally good people, unless they're fundamentally virtuous people. And virtue means that you will do the right thing even if no one's watching, because you know that in the end someone is watching. That's kind of the accountability aspect of it that's baked into this culture. Go to Vegas and whore around if you want to. The state's not going to stop you from doing this, but you will be held accountable for your actions. And then the flip side of this is this idea that, yes, this is an intimidating thing, accountability, but here also is redemption and a chance to start again and just a continuous rebirth by simply making the decision to just, all right, we'll start again. That combination of accountability and optimism that you can, in fact, be forgiven all of the things that you personally did, that your ancestors did, that your country did before you came, all of it. This idea that you can start again with a fresh sheet of paper it's the essence of America. So for those of you that love this country and may not feel that this holiday is literally true, that's entirely your business, and that's everybody's individual story to tell. But understand that this idea of Christmas and what it represents is not just a part of this country. It's the country. It's the whole thing we love about it. Accountability of virtuous people, and a sense that no matter what your failures or errors or sins may be, here you get a chance to try again and try to do better.
There is I'll end on what is one of the shorter verses in the Bible, and perhaps my favorite, that encapsulates this idea that Bill is talking about, the necessity of the liberty that we find in this country and the uniqueness still of it in many ways. And the verse says, "It is for freedom that Christ set us free." It is an inherent good in itself. So the purpose of being redeemed is to enjoy the freedom. And this country, in many ways, has played that out over the years and will continue to do so into the future. We're looking forward to being with you more in 2018. We've got still more left in 2017. Thank you to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Merry Christmas.
God bless.